In a world full of challenges, there are incredible people making a difference, one cause at a time. KFGO for a Cause, brought to you by Neil Van Dam and the Van Dam Financial Group. KFGO for a Cause shines a spotlight on organizations and individuals dedicated to positive change.
Welcome to KFGO for a Cause, a Sunday morning show with myself, Amy Eiler from It Takes Two with Amy and JJ, 11 to 2, Monday through Friday, and Neil Van Dam of the Van Dam Financial Group.
Good morning.
I think this was the first organization when we came up with the concept of KFGO for a Cause. You were like, Kamp KACE. I would assume Kamp KACE is one of the reasons you wanted a show to feature nonprofits and what they're doing.
Absolutely. Of all the charities, this is the charity that has had the biggest impact in my life for sure.
And tell us your connection to Kamp KACE.
My connection with Kamp KACE started, Lindsay probably knows better than I, like 14, 15 years ago, because I think it was our first year back was the same year. A friend of mine was a child life specialist, and they had a couple volunteers fall short that year, and she just asked me, she said, Neil, can you, you joked about coming, do you actually want to come this year? And I did. And I will tell you, it's just once you show up at a place like that, it's so addicting that it's really hard to ever quit coming back.
Lindsay, for those people who are listening who have never met Kamp KACE, tell us who Kamp KACE is.
Yeah, so Kamp KACE is a camp for kids with cancer and their siblings. So this will be our 40th year this summer hosting this camp. And I'm going to age myself here, but I was a camper back in the early 90s. So that's how I got involved with Kamp KACE. I was a camper for about 10 years, and my siblings and I got to go every year. It was the highlight of our week, or of our year.
Okay, can I ask then, did you have cancer?
I did. Yep, I was diagnosed at 5 with cancer, and so at 6, I went to camp for my first year.
What kind of cancer?
I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So it was in my tonsil. My left tonsil covered my entire throat. And when they removed my tonsils, that is how they found my cancer.
Oh, my goodness. How do you even know what to feel when you're 5 years old?
You don't.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, it was normal because that's all I knew.
Right.
I was the oldest kid in my family. So I was just entering kindergarten. I have a sister who's 1 year younger than me. And she cried when they told her she was going to kindergarten because she thought she had to get cancer to go to kindergarten.
Oh, my gosh. The reality of these little kiddos in your minds. So then you go to Kamp KACE when you're 5 for the first time?
I went when I was 6.
Okay, when you were 6. And what's that experience like? Like, do you go by yourself? Do your parents come with you? Like, from a camper standpoint?
You go by yourself.
That's so scary, isn't it?
At 6, you know...
But also cancer is scary. So what am I saying? These kids are like the bravest kids you've ever met.
Your siblings are allowed to go with you, too.
Yeah.
But because your sister was younger, she wasn't allowed.
She wasn't allowed, yeah. So I was...
Till the next year.
I was an independent child, so it was fine. I never actually got, like, why it was such a big deal until I came back as a counselor after I had kids. And then once I had a kid... And I watched these parents drop off their 7-year-old sick babies. I like, how were they doing that? Why? There's no way I could.
But now, as a counselor, now you know why, though, because you know the full experience, right? And it is life-changing, I'm sure, from you as someone who's now working there, but also as a camper, I'm sure it was life-changing.
Oh, it for sure is life-changing. And as a parent, you know, they're walking in and they're seeing all of the nurses from Sanford that they have grown to know and love through their child's treatment welcome the families and check in these families as they are checking their kids in.
Amazing.
So they're not dropping them off with strangers. A lot of the staff, all of our staff is volunteer, but most of our staff have been campers. So we've grown up through the camp system, and we're all a big family.
Okay, camp.
So when you start at 5 or 6,
Yeah.
And you go until 18, that's just what we do every summer. And you get to see them again. And you get to see them as they grow and their other siblings that either come in or age out. To me, Kamp KACE, one of the most important parts is not just the children that have had cancer, it's their siblings too. there's such a huge community of, I've been the forgotten child. I've been the child that mom and dad were so worried about that. The number one cause of divorce is because of loss of a child. Or not even that, but the traumatic instance of what's gone on with going through that with a child. So when you have these other kids get together and say, yeah, when my sibling had cancer, this is how it affected me. And honestly, we're not even talking about cancer that much at camp. It's just a part of what brought us all there. But it's just that relationships that happen throughout the rest of the year that's just so amazing.
Kamp KACE, a K and a K. Tell me the backstory. Like, does the KACE, KACE stand for something and I'm just not putting it together?
Yeah, KACE stands for Kids Against Cancer Everywhere.
Obviously, why you're getting together is these kiddos have been diagnosed with cancer. They're bringing their siblings along. You're giving them like a real camp experience, I imagine, right? I know Brewer and Agri from our outdoor show, Scott Brewer and Kyle Agri, always talk about you guys because I think they're involved in some fishing out there. Yes. But is it like your traditional camp experience when you get there?
The mission of Kamp KACE is to make children who have cancer feel like kids. I mean, nothing special, nothing like, we're going to treat you special. But we do have the doctors, we have the nurses, we have the medical staff that they're used to. Because imagine you have a child that has cancer. Their immunities are super weak. You've been just hovering over them for the last 12 months or maybe even a couple of years. And then you're expected to just let them go somewhere. And most of those people, like when we had the YWCA over, she was like, I won't even let my kids spend the night at someone else's house because of some of the things she's seen. Imagine letting your kids stay for a week somewhere else. And this is the child that you've been hovering over. So because we have that support system that they're so used to, these kids actually get to have a kid experience. And they're seeing other kids do amazing things. Some of them, we can't do everything, but we compensate. We have a zip line. We have a rock wall. We have horses. We have my personal favorite is we have a water trampoline that has a blob on the end. We've had to put some rules in place because I'm a little larger, and some of these 7-year-old girls can really fly through the air.
I love it. It's a real like camp outdoor experience.
It is. We really focus on being outdoors, and a lot of kids don't have access to a lake, and we are in the lake all the time.
I feel like I should ask this from the beginning, but where is Kamp KACE located?
We're on Cormorant Lake in Minnesota.
Okay,
so the YMCA has Camp Cormorant.
Yes.
And they shut down for 2 weeks around the 4th of July, and we come in and we rent the facility for one of those weeks.
Amazing.
And so when you talk about having a camp experience, we take a lot of what the Camp Cormorant and the experience that they have, and we give that to our families.
So, is there a waiting list? How do kids get in? What's that process like?
Right now, we don't have a waiting list. There is applications out there if they want to be a camper. Most of it is word of mouth from our awesome nurses at Roger Maris Cancer Center. Shout out to all the nurses there. They're amazing, and they are constantly talking up Kamp KACE. And I mean, there's a lot of negative when it comes to cancer. This is one thing that we can like, hey, but now you get to be part of the Kamp KACE family, and you got to come watch this video. Here's a brochure, and the nurses really try to get these kids excited
too. We've had the Ronald McDonald House on here too. So you get their communities. You get to know the same people because you're going back for treatments all the time. So especially when you have that shy kid that really doesn't think they'll want to do that, but then you have the other ones like, oh, no, you got to come to camp this year. It's going to be so fun. And we talk about the healing power of friendship and just being happy versus the medicine. It's a much different type of medicine.
Yeah, it's a healing medicine. I mean, I had a conversation with you last week about how like I really think like being in the dirt and weeding something is like healing for my body. There's just something about being on the earth outside, like touching nature, that just is healing. And to get these kids outside and experience these things that they probably thought wasn't possible after a diagnosis like this, right?
Yes. And being around other kids who have been through that. I mean, we have There was one year we had a kid, he refused to get out of his parents' van. Like, flat out refused, did not want to go, did not want to be there. And now he has come back 4 or 5 years in a row and is now we're hoping he said he'd be a counselor. So
I love that.
It's just it is changing.
Yeah.
My favorite camp story is my brother was diagnosed at 16 with bone cancer. And 6 months after having his right leg amputated above the knee, and he's a 3-sport athlete, things were pretty bleak. Never thought he'd do sports again. He came to camp, and that's how I actually came back as a counselor. He asked if I would go with him. So that was my first year as a counselor. And watching my brother 6 months after a full amputation climbing a rock wall and having the camp cheer for him behind him, and like I still get goosebumps just thinking about it. It was such an awesome moment, and I could tell a change in him. And like, all right, I do have some limitations now, but I can do a lot of this stuff. I just have to try it. But it's a safe space to try it.
That is an incredible. Your family has been through so much. Oh my gosh. I'm just stunned at your I'm just stunned at your stories. And now you're back at camp. How long have you been at Kamp KACE, then helping? Did you say that you've been there about the same time, 15 years?
Yeah, we came back and started as counselors at the same exact year.
Yeah, he was in my cabin. So.
Oh, I love that. This is KFGO for a Cause on Sunday mornings. I'm Amy Eiler. That's Neil Van Dam with the Van Dam Financial Group, and we're talking to Kamp KACE on KFGO. We're back on KFGO for a Cause. Neil Van Dam with the Van Dam Financial Group, Amy Eiler, and Lindsay from Kamp KACE.
So one thing I just wanted to make sure that we had a chance to talk about. So we talked about summer camp. Summer camp is amazing, and I absolutely love it. But then there's also a winter camp that we do. Typically takes place near the end of February. And the winter camp's a little bit different. So not just for kids, high school and grade school age kids. Regular summer camp goes from age 7 to 18. But then winter camp is, what is the ages, 16 to 22?
16 to 22.
And that is a much different environment because you're not dealing with just little children. So that experience between 7-year-olds versus a 18-year-old, for example, much different as far as just brain capacity and what's fun for them. But the older one is great because it's much smaller. Typically there's 20, 25 people there with a handful of counselors. All our counselors at that one, we make sure are survivors too, just because it brings it a little more at home. And it's a way more chill event.
And it's winter, so you're not camping.
No, but we will do, well, we used to do it out on Maple Log, and then we would go skiing and whatnot, but after they had the fire there, we've now changed it. So we do it at the YMCA camp, but we'll go sledding, we'll go ice fishing, we'll do winter stuff. The last couple of years, we've rented some hot tubs and had an igloo over it.
Nice.
But it's more about just hanging out, playing some games, doing some crafts, and having conversations, because now you're going through college. And, well, a lot of them decide to go on to college, and by having cancer as a child, more often than not, chemo affects your brain, and you might not be as fully functional as you would have been had you not had chemo. Doesn't mean that anyone else in society has any idea what's going on in your head, but talking about through some of these things of what's going on, how your family's doing, and that one's just for survivors. And
that camaraderie, too. I mean, you talk about it as a 7-year-old, how important that is. I feel like it's even more important once you're a teenager, like establishing those relationships. It's easy to make friends when you're 6 and 7. It's harder to make friends when you're teenagers. And so finding a way to get them together and create connections, or make it easy for them to create connections, would be really important for any teenager, but let alone kids that have gone through something like this.
Oh, absolutely. I think having it as a child is way easier than a teenager. I didn't know what I was missing out on. There was no social media. There was no, like, I didn't get to see what I was missing out on. These teenagers now, they get to see what they're missing out on, and it's a lot harder. And so winter camp, last year I was out there, and there was a table full of girls, and some had been a survivor and had gone on to college and had completed their treatment, and some were just freshly diagnosed. And they were like, oh, are you on this medication? Oh, yeah, I had that one. That one gave me this. Oh, me too. And this. And then they're like, hey, are you coming to summer camp? Yeah, we should go to summer camp. We would be in the same cabin. Let's do it. And so just creating that. And then I hear that they are Snapchat buddies now,
Sure.
or they text each other.
Yeah.
Or in each other's weddings. And wewe've had people meet at camp that are now married now.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, we get to have camp weddings, and those are really
Those
fun.
are fun.
I bet. How is Kamp KACE funded?
100% through donations and grants.
And you guys are 100% volunteer. There's not one paid staff member.
We pay our cook because we need good
you
food.
Can't, you need good food.
It's all about food.
Yes, we cannot skimp on the food. And she does. Our cooks do a fabulous job. So we pay our cook and we pay our director.
That's
but
it?
other than that, all of our staff, and we have usually about 60 staff out there at the summer camp, 100% donated time, volunteer for the entire week.
Yeah, the rest of us are paid in dilly bars.
Which you will happily
There's a
accept
lot
as
of dilly
payment.
bars flowing through, yeah.
Is it?
And that's the consistent staff. We also have people like the FM Walleyes come out.
Yeah.
And for our fishing day and the Lions, the local Lions Club, they come out in full force and help us out so much. So we have a lot of people come for the day that do a lot. And they also have helped fundraise in their capacities too.
Fundraisers throughout the year, do you have established ones?
Yeah, so Giving Hearts Day is our biggest one that just happened. We have the KACE Classic. It's a golf tournament, usually mid-August. And around the end of August, United Automotive here in Fargo puts on a car show and a silent auction for us for a fundraiser. And those are the ones that we as a board are really involved in. We have a camper who did her own thing with her volleyball team and raised money and sent it to camp as a camper. So there are a lot of kids and adults and even companies that put on events and choose Kamp KACE as the recipient, and will do other events that donate to us, but we don't have to put on, which we very much appreciate because we're a
Amazing.
volunteer board.
Well, you're a volunteer board, and like you want your focus to be on the campers, the camp, the experience. You want your focus to be on what you're doing, not fundraising. You know what I mean? The second you take away your time to do fundraising, then you're taking away from the actual mission, right? So,
Yes.
I mean, I totally understand that.
And it's super expensive. It's $1,000 for the week per child for summer camp.
Do
And
you ask families to pay?
We do
No.
not. It is free for our families,
Amazing. That's incredible.
and it's for all of them, all the siblings. Neil and I, we put a lot of time and energy in this, and our kids are around the same age. My daughter was just talking to me, my 10-year-old, asking if I get cancer, can I come to camp? How bad is cancer? Because she just wants to come to Kamp KACE so bad. I told her she has to wait until she's 18 and she can be a counselor because we don't want to wish that upon ourselves.
Right.
We've never had a shortage of volunteers. COVID was challenging because obviously
Sure.
we had to shut down the physical camp for a couple of years. But it's an amazing community. Most of the kids who go through as campers want to be a counselor at some point. It's not for everybody. Some of them are more than happy to be done. But
Yep.
a lot of the siblings keep coming back. And
Okay, so if people want to get involved, they want to donate, how do they reach out to Kamp KACE and help you with your mission?
KampKACE.org is our website. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. So reach out. We will for sure come back and figure out how, if you're willing to help. And people are very creative. They've thrown volleyball tournaments for us, bake sales. I think there was NDSU did a potato fry.
the
And
biggest ask, though, is if you know anyone who's going through it, who's had a child that has cancer, even if they're a couple hours away, they are eligible to come to our camp. We're really not too picky on who we take in there. And just sharing, hey, you really should check it out. And even if they're an introvert and saying, I don't think it's for us, tell them to get to know their medical staff at all the hospitals. I mean, they're all big fans of ours. And in fact, half the people who come out there work at those places. And even when they work, they're doing it on volunteer time.
That's incredible. I mean, what a testament to have all of the nurses and doctors out there alongside you. I mean, that really shows you how this is something that's important to them and the patients. How cool. Yeah. Thank you, Lindsay, so much for being here. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. And one final plug, go out to YouTube and search Kamp KACE, and you can watch some of our past videos so you can really see what camp is about and what we do.
I love that. KAMP KACE, Kamp KACE. Thank you.
Thank you.